Welcome to the Sustainability, Housing, Efficiency, and Neighborhood Subcommittee meeting for February. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Councilwoman Kate Gallego, pleased to be joined by Councilwoman Deborah Stark and Councilman Jim Waring. Thanks for joining us today. We have a full agenda and very diverse, but we'll begin with a call for the public. If anyone is interested in speaking, please fill out a yellow card indicating your interest, as well as the agenda item. We'll begin then with the meeting minutes for our January 16th meeting.
I move to approve.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. We have a consent agenda, items 2 through 8, which includes several items related to housing and neighborhoods. Does anyone have any questions on anything on the consent agenda? With no questions, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. There's some information in our meeting packet about some consulting services we're going to be looking into for deferred compensation, and that is agenda item number 9. Agenda item 10 is our first action and discussion item, which is a non-discrimination and anti-harassment policy. In consultation with Jim Waring, I had asked that this be placed first on our full council agenda, and now in more detail on this subcommittee. And this really comes out of some of the national conversations, as well as the conversations at the Arizona State Legislature. I had asked staff to research what would happen if a council member on the city council had committed harassment against an employee, and we did not have a clear policy. We do have a policy for our city employees, but it is a different structure in that the city employee policy reports to our city manager, and since the council hires and fires the city manager, it seems like an inherent conflict of interest to have him oversee our discipline. So hopefully we'll introduce some additional accountability today, and I want to thank our staff who've been working long and hard on this particular item, and turn it over to Tony, who will introduce the team.
Thank you, Chairwoman Gallego and subcommittee members. You are correct. You pointed out in December that you talked with staff about the fact that there is an employee policy currently. However, there is not a policy for elected officials. So we've conducted research and also drafted a policy for today's discussion. And with me today are Dan Brown and Polly Rapp from the Law Department, who will talk you through that information.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. My name is Dan Brown. I'm with the Law Department. Next to me is Polly Rapp. So we're going to start this morning by presenting in a tabular form the results of our research to give you some idea about what other jurisdictions are doing on this subject. And then from there, we have a series of decision points, and we'll present those in order as well. So with that, the council had directed staff to research anti-harassment policies through other jurisdictions, and that included best practices. We also were requested to review private sector rules of conduct, and we were requested to review policies that applied to elected officials, board members, and volunteers. So this is our research results for other municipalities. So we looked at other large cities and other cities located within Arizona. And what we found is that the anti-harassment policy is generally housed or embedded within a non-discrimination policy. There is one exception, and I'll show that later. But so that's the general practice. What we also learned is that the ethics policy includes, the non-discrimination policy is embedded within an ethics policy, and that's about half of the jurisdictions. We also looked at who investigates complaints, and what we found is it's generally broken down into thirds. So a third of the jurisdictions review complaints directly by the council, so the council itself would hear and potentially review the complaints. The other third handles it through some sort of a commission, whether it's an ethics commission or other commission within the jurisdiction. And lastly, the other third handles it through a private investigator, or a special investigator, I should say, that's hired directly and reports to the council. The sanctions imposed, as far as related to elected officials, there are 3 general broad categories: censure, fines, and removal. we found that most of the jurisdictions included some form of removal. We were also asked to look at the Arizona legislature, and so the Arizona Senate actually is the sole jurisdiction, if you will, or agency that did not include an anti-harassment policy within the context of a non-discrimination. Their brethren in the House, actually, they include it within a non-discrimination. So there's a slight little difference between the Arizona Senate and House. Again, the investigation is generally conducted by a panel or a team using a third-party investigator. The sanctions include written reprimand, reassignment, and a revocation of privileges. So that's generally consistent with the other jurisdictions. So we also looked at private sector. The companies that we looked at the private sector included APS, Intel, Google, and Apple. Quickly, they all included the anti-harassment policy within a non-discrimination policy. It's also the non-discrimination policies within the ethics policy at APS. It was unclear to us, Intel, Google, and Apple, based upon what we could locate, whether that was the case for those three organizations. And then almost all of the private sector organizations reported their violations to the HR department. So, based upon our conduct or our research, we're proposing a policy that applies to elected officials, board members, and volunteers, and that they must not, by words or conduct, harass or discriminate against any person based upon the person's race, color, religion, sex, national origin, ethnicity, age, sexual orientation, marital status, gender, gender identity, or expression, or disability. So this broad, comprehensive approach grew out of our research. Almost all the other jurisdictions expanded beyond just sexual harassment, if you will. And so based upon our research and best practices, this is our recommendation. We also recommend that the subcommittee this morning consider including retaliation and making a discrimination, as well as retaliation against someone who participates in an investigation. And this also is within the context of federal law. Title VII, for example, is a separate and distinct legal claim. And so any decision or recommendation by the subcommittee this morning should, we recommend, address this issue as well. So this morning, we have a number of decision points for the subcommittee to consider as they move this forward to the full council. Number one, the first decision point is who will conduct the investigations. Is it the Ethics Commission, the City Council, or a designated subcommittee, or an independent investigator? One of the items, or two items that we recommend that the subcommittee consider. Number one, and this goes to policies under federal law, that the victims and the respondents' identities remain confidential through the investigation process. And that we recommend that applies whether it's the Ethics Commission, the City Council, or a subcommittee, or an independent investigator that investigates. It's important to preserve not only the confidentiality, but the integrity of the investigation. And secondly, we recommend that claims for frivolous complaint provisions, we have those types of provisions in our ethics policy. We recommend that those not apply to claims for discrimination or harassment, because it has a chilling effect. And so, and that's also consistent with federal law.
Could
yes.
we pause for a moment?
Sure.
Councilman Waring has a question.
If it's okay.
Oh, absolutely.
As we're
No,
going along,
anytime.
rather.
Please interrupt.
So the respondent's identity is confidential. Obviously, that's, like you said, a crux of it. So there are sanctions if someone has this information and leaks it.
I'm sorry, you have to, so if someone has this information
Right.
and, I'm sorry.
Not necessarily the elected official or the complainant, but we give it to a law firm, or we give it to, I think you see what I'm saying.
Yes.
And somebody else takes it and gives it to a newspaper or something, where before everybody establishes that it's true or not, or
So,
meritorious or not, I guess. I should say.
Madam Chair, Councilman Waring, yes, so if it's, for example, let's say that the subcommittee chooses that the council itself will investigate that. They hire a special investigator. The confidentiality provision, if it certainly would apply, and would apply important as part of the investigation. If it's released or leaked in any way, there can be sanctions, especially if this issue was discussed in e-session, for example. The open meeting laws contain prohibitions against leaking confidential communication within the context of e-session. So yes, there are various avenues to restrict or prohibit that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So sanctions, again, for elected officials include censure, civil fines, removal. There's actually, our research found that there's two different options for removal. There's what we call the MESA model, which is a supermajority of the council itself. In MESA, that is 5 of 7 elected officials may vote to remove a council member. The San Diego model is that the council refers the removal by special election to the voters. So those are the two models that we found. Yes.
So 5 out of 7, if one is being investigated, do you mean 5 out of 6? Or does the person still get to vote? The one that may be, the claim may be against?
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Stark, so interestingly enough, the MESA charter doesn't really clarify whether the voting member, it just says that it has to be the affirmative vote of 5 of the 7. So whether or not there's a conflict, at least 5 members in MESA have to vote for removal, as was the recent case, I believe. For board members, sanctions include censure, civil fines, removal, and a combination of all of the above. The council currently has the ability to remove board members under the city code. Policy options. So the next decision point is where is this policy going to reside? Is it going to reside as part of the ethics ordinance itself, or as a standalone policy within the city code? Our recommendation is, if the subcommittee is inclined to recommend that the Ethics Commission investigated the complaints, that the policy be embedded within the ethics policy. If there are other options that the committee wishes to pursue, then we would recommend a standalone policy. It just makes it easier to discern who's responsible for what parts of the policy. The next decision point is the effective day. If this particular policy, if the subcommittee has recommendations this morning, it would go to the policy session on February 27th, I believe. And so if there's a policy that's adopted by the full council, it would automatically go into effect 30 days after adoption, or the council subcommittee can recommend some sort of designated date, April 1st, July 1st, whichever. But generally, it would go into effect by law 30 days after adoption. The other decision point is what conduct applies to the policy, prior conduct. The EEOC, for example, will go back 300 days to investigate types of conduct. So the subcommittee could decide to go back approximately a year or 300 days, or that it's not retroactive. Or another option would be that it would apply to conduct, say, for example, at the beginning of a council member's term. That would be also a potential policy decision point. And then claim deadlines. What's the time limit by which any claims of harassment may be applied? There is a general 1-year statute of limitations to almost all claims under state law, or there may be some other limit, or no limit. So the final decision point is whether or not the harassment policy or anti-discrimination policy, non-discrimination policy would apply to private life, or whether it would solely apply when the elected official is acting within the course and scope of their responsibilities. So that's a big decision. So there are policy arguments either way. Generally, when we conducted our research, we found that almost all of the jurisdictions apply an anti-harassment, non-discrimination policy to conduct within the course and scope of their responsibilities.
And Dan, if I
Yeah,
might,
go ahead.
for the subcommittee members back on the sanctions, removal from office currently isn't in the city charter, so
Right.
that would need to be a charter change that would go before the voters, just for clarification on that.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Tony. And so, next steps. So, as we discussed, this is to be presented to the mayor and the full council on the 27th at a policy session. And then if it's adopted without any other limits, it would go into effect March 29th. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councilman Waring?
Just a course of
Yes.
action. So we got this motion, which, I think we just got now, right? So could you go back to the last slide that you had, the policy decision points? I assume you guys have this, the proposed motion. So I guess maybe the simplest thing, Madam Chair, if I may, I don't want to overstep, would be to go through, the multiple points that we have up there, and which ones does this talk about? Or which ones this would check? I don't know if that's what you had in mind, but that might be simpler than going through each one and the audience not knowing kind of what's been proposed.
That would be.
Is that okay with you, Dan?
Yeah,
Does that make sense? Okay.
absolutely.
I mean, I think I've got it, but, or I can ask questions.
Okay. And so I'm proposing that the council hire an independent investigator, which is option C.
May I ask,
Yes.
so do we vote on the independent investigator? I know we have the approved vendor list. I think this talks about that there, right? So are we voting on a vendor, or how do we select the vendor?
I propose that that the law department, off of our qualified vendor list, find an employment lawyer.
Okay.
So,
fine.
Chairwoman Gallego, Councilman Waring, the way that would generally work, let's say a complaint is received by the city clerk. The city clerk would deliver that to the city manager. The city manager would essentially set up an e-session whereby the council, if this decision point is adopted, the council would look at it and say, yes, we need to proceed, and there we would bring a series of qualified vendors from our law firm list, and from those, the council could select one to proceed and move into the investigative phase.
Which, Madam Chair, we do in other areas.
Right, it's
Yeah.
consistent with our current practices.
Do you want to move on? Oh, sorry.
And then I think in terms of sanctions, that removal from office should be an option. I think that it was something that was, for example, in the case of Don Shooter, was a successful outcome. So that would require a charter amendment, which I would hope would happen at the next election with candidates. So I don't know that we need to immediately have the expense of a special election, but if the next election where we're electing candidates.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yes.
We don't have, I think this is an obvious question, we don't have any pending cases now or anything, correct?
Madam Chair, Councilman Waring, no, we do not.
So what happens if between now and the election, which is kind of indeterminate at the moment, it depends on everybody's other election schedules, let's put it that way. But this thing hasn't passed, and now you've got a case sitting here. What do we do? I mean, I don't want to wait 6 months. I think you see, I don't think anybody would want to wait 6 months on something like that.
We could
The
censure and
confidentiality
do
would hard to
civil.
hold.
We just have censure
Right.
and civil as an option.
Chairwoman
okay.
Gallego,
All right.
Councilman Waring, you would
Okay,
still
if
have.
that's the answer, that's
You
fine.
still have, yeah, the option of.
So you'd be limited until the thing passed, because it may not pass, too. We can't presume voters would vote for it. I mean.
That's
We
absolutely
really have no way to
correct.
know, so.
Possible voters don't ever want to get rid of us.
I don't know. I find that hard to believe. I don't think any of us are that charming, speaking strictly for myself. But, yes, okay, that's fine.
And then I'm proposing a standalone policy not in the ethics ordinance. So policy options, it could either be in the ethics ordinance or standalone.
And you're saying B?
Right.
Okay.
Because we're not
Got
having
it.
the ethics commission investigate.
Right.
I'm perfectly open to having the ethics commission
Okay.
investigate, but since it is not yet impaneled,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
And then in the course of office or campaign for city office would apply. And the existing ethics code be amended to include the following, include language asking that council members comply with all applicable laws. And that the policy take effect 30 days following full council approval. And that complaints could be taken anytime since we have been sworn in. So that would be retroactive.
So just as a matter of clarification, Chairwoman Gallego, so as far as investigation, again, just to kind of, as a summary, to make sure I fully understand the motion, it would be, first of all, to move approval as proposed, whereby it would include claims for harassment, discrimination against a number of broad categories. They're actually protected categories. It would also include retaliation, as I understand, as well as for a victim or someone who participates in an investigation. So that's the first level. It would be presented to the council to decide to whom will or who will investigate the complaint. That will be based upon our current practice of presenting a number of firms based upon our QVL. Also just to make sure that the victims and the respondents' identities would remain confidential, that the process would contemplate that, and that there would not be the threat of sanctions for frivolous complaints for someone who brings a discrimination or anti-harassment claim. As far as sanctions, there would be A and B, censure, civil fines. Removal would be presented to the voters at the next, as a charter change or a charter amendment at the next election. As far as sanctions on board members, just remain as stated, censure, civil fines, removal from office, or any combination, just to make sure we're clear on that. As far as policy options, given that it's the city council that is investigating, it would be a separate standalone policy. As far as an effective date, I understand that that will be 30 days from adoption, so it would just go into effect. As far as prior conduct, it would apply to conduct retroactive to the council members' first day in, or during campaign. That's the, so during a campaign or a term, is that, did I understand that correctly? And that as far as a claim deadline, was there any limit?
I'm not proposing any limit.
Okay, no limit.
Can I ask a question about the term, being sworn in? So we have council members who are sitting on this council right now who were elected in, I think, 1989, 1993, and one was appointed, that's the mayor, in 2000. So are you talking about like the current term, or are you talking about going back to like 1989?
Maybe
'Cause I guess-
contiguous terms, so.
I don't know.
I'm open to proposals.
I mean, you're potentially going back 12 years. Particularly the ones, the first couple I mentioned, I don't think you really even had email or anything, so it's not like you'd have potentially written records. It just seems like that's been an issue in the ongoing national debate. You know, how do you, really almost 30 years ago now in one case. I think it would have come up before now, but, you know, that's not necessarily the case. So if you're talking contiguous terms, it's still 12 years back, which seems like a long time given that the EEOC is 300 days. I don't know what I'm not proposing anything. Is anything I'm saying unreasonable? Because that seems like a long time.
Right, but it seems like if we didn't have a policy, people might not have come forward because of lack of
Fair enough.
protections.
That's a fair point.
So,
I mean, I'm okay with it either way. I do think the 1989, 1993, you know, that seems to get a little bit, 30 years seems long.
it would be difficult to find
I
corroborating
mean,
evidence.
to have any kind of, to the extent we're participating in this, hiring lawyers and stuff, it just seems like that would be kind of a hard. I mean, I was in college in another state when Delta was first, so it just seems, I'm not saying bad stuff didn't happen then, and so forth. That just seems like a long time. So contiguous terms would address at least some of that. I'm fine with that, if that's.
Do contiguous terms
Yes,
for now?
because
and
that's
we can
not in
think
there
on
right
it
now,
before
so
policy.
the way it was written, I definitely thought it would be going back to the 80s.
So with that, we'll add, I'm getting a nod, so I'll treat that as a friendly amendment as to contiguous terms. And then as far as the final decision point, what I understand is that the non-discrimination, anti-harassment policy would apply solely to conduct acting within the course and scope of the city's responsibilities. However, to address other forms of conduct, you're proposing to add language, the language comply with all applicable laws to our ethics policy to address other forms of conduct outside of within the course and scope of city's responsibility. So, for example, a situation, well, let's speak to one in the news. If it's the example in Mesa, for example, it was, I think, extreme DUI, which normally isn't anti-harassment, non-discrimination. So arguably, this policy would not apply to that particular set of facts. However, the proposed amendment to the ethics policy comply with all applicable laws. That is in the Mesa charter as far as their ethics policy, and so it was under that particular provision that they took the action that they did, that the council took that action to remove that. So that's not currently in our ethics policy, and so that's why the proposed amendment.
Ask a question.
Of course.
Not trying to undermine what was done when we passed the ethics policy a year and a half, 2 years ago, however long that was. But we had a lot of debate and discussion about that. So currently, if one of the members got an extreme DUI, there is no mechanism to remove them from office for that.
Currently, our current ethics policy addresses in personal integrity, truthfulness, honesty, fairness in carrying out their public duties, and avoiding any improprieties in their roles as public servants. So currently, you may bring a case for extreme DUI, but it would be a difficult case.
Well, I mean, I'm just using that example. 'Cause
Right.
You mentioned it because it was in.
Right. So with the proposed amendment to the ethics policy, that would make it plain. It would make an easier case to bring an extreme DUI, for example, as misconduct.
Right, so I guess, Madam Chair, I guess I'm confused. So we had an ethics policy.
Correct.
This is a separate standalone thing. I guess, really, I'll just tell you why I'm asking this, and then I'll go to my question. So we spent a lot of time on the ethics policy. I think it was unanimous, so I think we all agreed, removal from office for the things that were covered by that ethics policy, which I guess was not sexual harassment
Correct.
specifically, but it was other forms of, I guess, potential misconduct. But I think the DUI example was specifically mentioned as, we didn't want to be in a position, I'm interpreting, but again, it passed, so that wasn't going to be, we didn't want to be put in the position of removing somebody from office for that. You're saying that
Correct.
we could, because that flies in the face of what I thought we voted on.
No, currently you could not. And you could not with, let's say, for example, that this.
Pick another example if there's
Well,
something
this
different.
proposed, well, let's say that this proposed amendment passes and the ethics policy is amended with this language. There currently is not the ability to remove even for an ethics violation. So
Right.
you could not remove someone for that.
I just thought, I don't remember even who it was, but the sponsor of the ethics motion, we had quite a bit of debate. You should definitely tell the other members if we're changing the policy, which we just voted on, a year or so ago. It sounds
Right.
like we're not. We're adding a new policy where you can be removed for sexual harassment. I was going to summarize it. That's kind of what we're doing.
It's proposed you can be censured and you can be sanctioned for non-discrimination, anti-harassment. You would have to amend
The state
charter.
But
for
assuming, I
removal.
guess I'm presuming that it would, I do agree with
Right.
Councilman Gallego. I don't know that people would vote against that, but I've been surprised before, so you never know. But in any case, assuming that passes in a year from now, but it just wouldn't change that other thing. Not necessarily be against it, but we did sort of all agree on a different course
Right.
during that rather lengthy discussion.
We did not make any changes to the ethics policy. The discussion about the ethics policy had to do with the commission and developing and adopting all of that, and a gift policy. So no substantive changes were made. The ethics policy is the same as originally adopted, I believe, back in 1971.
May I ask another question?
I think
Or
Councilwoman
if she's
Stark
got one,
had
yeah,
one
go
quick
ahead,
one.
sure, that's fine.
And just to take that a little further, so let's get off the extreme DUI. What if, God forbid, but what if some council person had been alleged to have raped a minor prior to being on the council? How would we handle that? Is that an ethics issue? I hope that.
Chairwoman
won't ever happen.
Gallego,
Right.
Councilwoman Stark. So, two issues there. Currently, as drafted, without the anti-harassment, non-discrimination policy, that could be addressed under the ethics policy as being essentially not carrying out their public duties and improprieties. So those sorts of allegations. And as currently drafted and contemplated, those allegations would be heard by the Ethics Commission and investigated. So let's say that the council adopts the non-discrimination anti-harassment policy, then a separate action could be brought under that policy if such a policy is adopted.
Even though it might have happened even though it might have happened in private life, you could still address it under the sexual
Correct.
harassment. Okay, thank
That's
you.
correct. Whereas,
It's
well,
under
actually,
ethics, not
I should
this.
clarify. The anti-harassment, non-discrimination side of it, because it happened in private life, it would not apply. It would be under the ethics policy that you would have to address the private life claims.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a question? Maybe I missed it, so on a different subject. So the removal from office, we'd have to also send like the mechanism that we're sending to the voters? I mean, would it say, I guess I'm assuming anybody accused is probably going to vote for themselves, or they should just quit, so, vote their side. So I think that was the crux of maybe Councilman Stark's question earlier. So if we were going to follow the Mesa model, they only have 7, we have 9. You'd have to get 7 out of the remaining 8, taking yourself out of it. Is that what we're agreeing on?
Essentially, I believe that's what Mesa has adopted. We could adopt a different standard, but
Right,
assuming
but that's
that we
it. That
adopt a
seems
similar
like-
standard.
If it's this
Supermajority
egregious, it seems like-
seems-
Yeah,
Yeah.
see,
An
that
affirmative.
seems,
Affirmative vote and that's true with for example, anything having to do with any sort of sanction under the ethics policy, it requires the affirmative vote of 7 of 9 members.
so, yeah, so it's kind of it's the same rubric as that. I think that's the right word. On the proposed language here, so on number 1, the policy language, if I were going to summarize this, it basically applies to the elected officials what already applies to the city staff, the 14,000 staff members. I mean, that's a fair statement, right?
Chairwoman Gallego, Councilman Waring, that's a fair
We
statement.
don't have any extra categories or less or anything. It's the same.
It's the same.
Which seems fair and reasonable. We apparently didn't do this for board members and volunteers before, and now we are.
It was unclear, and so now we are. Now it's plain.
Now it's clear. It seems fair. We get treated
I
like.
think people expect
Yeah, I
us
think that's
to.
fine. I think we were all surprised that it wasn't there before, so.
Right. We have 3 cards, so I'm going to go ahead and take the cards now.
Can I say one thing?
Of course.
Before, Councilman Gallego approached me about this, but we're on the same subcommittee, and so one of our members resigned, and when that happened, we were not able to work because of quorum issues. So we're setting up a meeting, and somebody's like, hey, you can't meet, to discuss this and so forth. So this was new information to me as of this morning, but that is through no fault of the
I had asked if I
chairperson.
could share it in advance and was told that I could not.
Yeah, it gets a little bit tricky. I have not served on a 3-person subcommittee. This was an issue when the Corporation Commission had 3 members and so forth. So I'm sorry that we did not get to interact. But I think the end result is something I would have approved of anyway. So,
Good.
So, but in any case, so it's like, you read my mind, but we were not able to, the original plan, though, was something different than this, and it just, because of forces beyond our control, we weren't able to do it the way we
There are
expected.
certainly a
So-
lot of laws that apply in this particular situation, and so
Yes.
we are lucky to our legal department who
Yes,
has.
keeps us fully employed. We
Yes.
love it.
Fabulous. The chairwoman of our ethics, or of our Women's Commission, Jody Liggett. Yes, please come to the microphone.
Good morning, Chairwoman Gallego, members of the subcommittee, and everyone here. My name is Jody Liggett. I'm the chair of the Phoenix Women's Commission. We would like to congratulate all of you on your work on this very important issue, and especially Councilwoman Gallego for your leadership and providing a sense of urgency, really, to adopt a policy. This is overdue, I think we all realized, and we have enjoyed working with you, especially on equal pay. The commission is 100% behind this effort, and we're happy to see it moving along at this speed. It's terrifying, actually, to think that there really was no policy governing elected officials' conduct, or even on boards and commissions with volunteers, such as the one I serve on. So we just want to affirm your work on this, particularly the research by staff. We think it was incredibly thorough, and that you're striking the right balance here. And just on a personal note, in my professional life, I've worked with elected officials in a variety of settings, from the AG's office to being staff at the legislature, working in a governor's office, and here at the City of Phoenix and the mayor's office. And I'm actually sorry to say, in every single one of those settings, I either personally experienced harassment or witnessed it directly. So it's just a sad commentary. Over a 20-year career, including to the present day, this is just something that happens to women and men. We often don't talk about it, but it affects careers and livelihoods in ways that you can't even imagine. So I want to, this is a happy statement. We applaud the work that you're doing, but I don't really want anyone for a minute to forget how serious this really is. And thank you again for your work.
Wonderful, thank you. And thank you to the Women's Commission for being our partners. Allie Bones with the Coalition Against Sexual and Domestic Violence.
Good morning. I'm Allie Bones. I'm the CEO of the Arizona Coalition to End Sexual and Domestic Violence, and we are here in support of the committee's passage of this policy recommendation. I also want to thank Councilwoman Gallego for her leadership and bringing this issue forward in today's environment where sexual harassment and sexual abuse allegations are coming at all levels of society and public and private areas. We think it's really important that there be a policy adopted. Again, it's scary that the city didn't have something in place already, so we absolutely support this effort. I also want to thank staff for the level of research that they did, and as the entity in Arizona that advocates on systems changes and policies, want to iterate my full support for the recommendations as they've been suggested here this morning on all of the decision points. We fully support those. And just want to thank the city for reaffirming your commitment to standing against sexual violence and standing with survivors, bringing their issues forward. So I want to thank subcommittee members today for your vote on this issue, and again, thank Councilwoman Gallego for her leadership.
Could you speak a little bit about, you for many years have been talking about retaliation and why that particular provision is important?
Yeah, so the issue of retaliation, someone brought up earlier around the issue of a chilling effect, and obviously if you feel like you are somehow going to be demoted or lose your job or have any kind of actions taken against you for bringing forward even just an allegation, you are not going to bring that forward. People's livelihoods are at stake. People, their employment, their future, their career trajectory are all impacted by decisions about whether or not to bring these things forward. So having a strong anti-retaliation policy in place is really important.
Wonderful, thank you. I just think it was important to have that
Yeah.
on the record today.
Thank you. Any questions?
My extra question was to that point, not necessarily for Allie, but I guess for the city. So I assume amongst the 14,000 employees, there have been issues of sexual harassment that have been addressed over time. I am curious on the retaliation component. So, we, the 9 of us on the council, we don't deal with all 14,000 employees necessarily. We might deal with any one of them, but generally speaking, we deal with department heads, maybe deputies, unless there's some specific issue you're talking about. So is retaliation, obviously, we don't necessarily want people in the same room for a meeting where one's accusing the other of something. How does that work? I don't have any good suggestions. Is that retaliation if the member was like, I don't want to be around that person right now? If they're a department head, it's going to be pretty hard to avoid them. So how does that work in the experiences we've already, I'm sure, unfortunately encountered in the city?
So, Chairwoman Gallego, Councilman Ware, I'm going to let Polly Rapp, who handles those types of cases for the city. She has a great deal of experience on those types of issues, so she's the better person to answer your question.
Madam Chair and Councilman Waring, actually, it's only come up for me in an employment context, and so what we do in a lot of cases is we do separate the complainant and the person who's accused of the harassment.
Makes sense.
How you would handle that in a public meeting, is that your question?
Well, a public meeting or, pick a department. We deal with all of them, basically. So, now you either can't meet with the department head, or I guess maybe you wouldn't necessarily want to under those circumstances if you're a council person, but is refusing to meet with them, then retaliation.
So there's also the concept of having a monitor to make sure that there's nothing untoward that happens. If the meeting has to occur, it has to occur, but maybe there are measures you can take to alleviate any problems by having others monitor it.
I don't suggest we get too deep into the micromanaging of how it's just, you don't want to be unfair to a person who might be, for all we know, unjustly accused or something. It's just, that's a tricky one, and there are meetings we simply can't avoid, really. If you want to be effective at all, it's just one of those things. So I'm open to suggestions, but you might want to think about how that would work, because it sounds like maybe you had an offense.
Well, Chairwoman Gallego, Councilman Ware, actually, we would work really closely in those cases with the city manager's office and develop a protocol whereby if it's, for example, it's a department head and the allegation, but there are ways to essentially address the communication, keep business ongoing, and at the same time protect the interests of both the respondent and the victim. That's extremely important.
All right, that's fine, as long as you're kind of on that and some guidance is given, so that nobody makes any further, what would undoubtedly be a bad situation worse, without intending to, so.
We were in the middle of public comment. Did you want to add anything to that? Or wonderful. Thank you both for your testimony. Diane Barker has a statement.
Thank you, Chairwoman Gallegos and Subcommittee. I'm Diane Barker. I'm in District 7. And from what I see on this particular item, you're dealing basically with city employees. But I have read many of your contracts, and the contracts ask for the department head and the city manager to maintain the resources and supervise. And I see that we are advancing the best practices, which I'm happy to see at the City of Phoenix. But never ever forget, by when you turn over power to a contractor, that the city has a great responsibility that those employees there will not be discriminated or harassed, because the efforts are all working for the public that pay your bills. Now, we should not have attorneys get into court and argue that it was the contractor and they have their employees and that we know nothing, because when the city refers to the EOC for their big contractors, this kind of thing can become a billing opportunity and a food frenzy where the victim goes hurt. And this has to stop. The little contractors, I guess under, 15? Apparently, you've got to look at the law. They say that becomes a criminal, from what my understanding, thing, whereas the big contractors aren't under a criminal code. So that needs to be looked at. Now, I want to call your attention, and Karen Peters is here, and tomorrow there is a consideration of a citizen petition in regards to, that's Chapter 4, Section 22 of the Phoenix Charter, where the citizen, and what they are alleging for your consideration, and maybe you've read all of this, that the public wasn't involved when the Judicial Selection Advisory considered public access. From what I see from the city's part, they say there was a call to the audience, but she never ever said there was a notice. I want you to look at this in the consideration of item 90 tomorrow.
Thank you for your testimony. Any further questions from council members? I guess, should I make the then I move the long-discussed motion, including the change that it applied to council members for the current term and terms that are contiguous with the current term.
Okay. You know what? I'm sorry.
Yes,
Can I ask one question?
absolutely.
Okay. What happens if it's alleged a council member harasses a council member?
Again, that matter would be, the complaint is filed. The matter would be scheduled for e-session. We would have to excuse, we'd have to work through that and excuse it, but it would have to be handled in e-session and then a different investigator. So it would be the same process. It's just that you would have to most likely exclude both the respondent and the victim and address it in e-session among the remaining members. But we would handle that in due course.
We're just a little bit, so it's just a little bit tricky because at the legislature, I don't want to discuss that specific instance, but that was at least initially, I think it was a legislator on legislator thing. And then other people, but I think that's where it started. I shouldn't speak out of turn. Generically, we'll just say that it did. I thought there might be multiple legislators who were complaining, which isn't an issue when there's 90 or 60, I guess, if it's in the House, but I suppose it could happen here. Again, I wouldn't anticipate any of this. It hasn't happened before, but that doesn't mean, to your point, maybe there were complaints and nobody
Right.
said anything because there wasn't a policy. I don't know.
We
I don't
could
know.
direct-
Hopefully that's probably too much in the weeds and it wouldn't happen, but
Chairwoman Gallego, Councilmember, but the same principles apply. Essentially, it would be investigated. It would, in order to preserve the integrity of the investigation, we would certainly keep the respondent and the victim out of the decision-making about the investigator, and then to the extent we could, to preserve the integrity of the investigation, they would move forward. So there are means to work through it. We would just have to really put our thinking caps on and work through it.
as I said, hopefully with all this stuff, it'll never come up, but just because it hasn't before doesn't mean it wouldn't in the future.
Certainly, it is better to think out the details when we are not in the middle of a case.
That's why I asked the question. Yep.
Yes. So I guess I had a motion on the table.
I will second it.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you all for your work on this, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the February 27th meeting. Thank you for your work. Now, a very different topic. We will move to the Phoenix Employees Retirement System. Right? Oh, I'm sorry, do we have brownfields? I apologize, it was at the bottom of my agenda and I did not see it. Brownfields.
I can go to the restroom, right? Oh, she left. Hi. Well, it is-
We'll welcome
didn't
our
have to
Acting
have it.
Environmental Programs Administrator
But I don't think we,
for our long-awaited brownfields presentation. Right. All right.
Good morning. We'll lighten up the topic a little bit, I hope, and we'll talk about the intersection between environment and health. I'm Roseanne Albright with the Office of Environmental Programs, and I have Paris Masick, President of Green on Purpose, here as my guest today that'll be talking about a great project toward the end of the presentation. So what we're really doing today is talking about our Brownfields to Healthfields project, which is really about transforming and improving community health. By way of background, our Brownfields program has been in existence for about 20 years now, and we've experienced certainly a lot of success with over 300 acres of previously contaminated land redeveloped into commercial, retail, industrial, residential, and open spaces with more than $300 million in private investment and more than 3,000 jobs. We've also expanded our partnership with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, and we've received about $2.5 million in brownfields funding for redevelopment, for environmental job training programs, for development of brownfields land use plans, and in 2015, we had the opportunity to partner with them again to explore the intersection between environment and health. As we know, health is more than healthcare. It's really about our genetics, our behavioral choices, our social environment, our general individual behavior as well. In other words, the social determinants of health. The conditions in which people are born, grow, work, live, and age, and the set of forces and systems that shape those conditions of our daily lives. Our built environment plays a pretty important role. The quality of our air, water, and land, the opportunities that are available for spaces to be physically active and social, and our safe neighborhoods. The recognition of this intersection between land and use and health is very evident in our general plan, in Plan Phoenix. We see there are goals for brownfields redevelopment, but there are also goals for a healthy food system. We also see this evident in our 2050 environmental sustainability local food system goals, where our desire is to eliminate food deserts, to increase urban agriculture in all of its forms, and to adopt zoning and policies that improve that particular food system. So while the opportunities are there, we also have some challenges. We have in the city of Phoenix 43 out of 55 food deserts in Maricopa County. And on this map, you can see food desert areas are shown in blue. And this means where residents have to travel more than a mile to get healthy food, whether it's a supermarket, a farmer's market, any kind of healthy retail food outlet. So nearly half of our population live in these food desert areas. We also see challenges with regards to health. We have increased rates of diabetes, heart disease, and obesity. And in this particular map, it shows the evolution and the change in obesity rates that started in 1990 from about 10% in Arizona to now at about 25%. And in Maricopa County, we're at 25%, a little bit slightly lower than the national average. So these opportunities and challenges combined helped us to create the Phoenix Brownfields to Healthfields project, whose goal really is to match the need for food and healthcare assets with brownfields redevelopment to again help improve community health. So the project was started in late 2015 with a $400,000 grant from the US EPA. And as you can see, with the support of many partners from Vitalis Health Foundation to the Valley of the Sun United Way, ASU, U of A, quite a few folks to help us get this project kicked off. The project initially started with a focus on 7 target areas, which are our designated neighborhood revitalization areas and redevelopment areas. And what we found is that in these areas there is a lot of need, and we also found that it was a great opportunity to leverage any kind of revitalization work that's happening in these areas as well. So I want to overlay on top of that map a figure that shows you the food deserts in blue, low supermarket access areas, which is another designation that shows how challenging it is to obtain healthy food in an area, and then overlaid with medically underserved areas in the yellow. So as you can see, in our West, Central, and South Phoenix areas, we see a lot of this happening as well. So this particular project, we started to develop an inventory of potential redevelopment opportunities, and we've identified 200 properties, primarily privately owned, that we are working with, and to date we've completed 7 projects. So I just want to talk about a few of them. So this is our Spaces of Opportunity project. It's about a 20-acre parcel at 15th Avenue and Vineyard that is being turned into an urban farm. It's got community garden space. And this year they are starting to work on some buildings to develop an amphitheater, improve the roads, and really create a space to have not only culture and art, but also to have health and education classes. It's a collaboration between a couple of nonprofits, Desert Botanical, on property that is being leased from Roosevelt School District. The City of Phoenix, through Brownfields to Hillfields, provided environmental site assessments. We found small areas that contained arsenic and lead above regulatory levels that needed to be mitigated. And then we also are providing a $70,000 grant to help with infrastructure improvements as they go forward. Another project we're working on is with the Mullen Foundation, and they're establishing a community garden at Garfield Elementary School. And it's going to be a great space for the kids to learn how to grow food, but also to learn about health, nutrition, cooking, and science. Right now we are in the environmental site assessment process, so we're doing some digging around and soil sampling to find out what's there to make sure that it's safe for folks to grow. So the exciting thing about this project is that they also plan on doing community events, and parents are much involved in this one as well. And another project that is in stages of completion is the International Rescue Committee project on 16th Avenue in Camelback. There is an aquaponics facility inside a greenhouse. We've been providing assistance. It used to be an underground storage tank site, so we wanted to make sure that there were no petroleum products or any hazardous substances in the soil. They are also going to be renovating a building, and we've provided some assistance on the area of asbestos and lead-based paint. So this project is in process. They're working on renovating the buildings for the future to have some farm stands, so the ability to grow on the site, sell the food on the site, and potentially even have things like bread ovens and have cultural opportunities for people to come to the site. And then the last project that I'm going to turn it over to Paris to talk about is our award-winning Pueblo Viejo Fields. So Paris?
Thank you, Chairman Gallego and Councilman Stark and Warning. We started this project in conjunction with Maricopa County Food System Coalition and City of Phoenix Environmental Programs back in 2016. You will see the brownfield in the lower left-hand corner of this. That's what the area looked like when we first started out. With the help of the city and the EPA and environmental programs, we did an initial assessment of the property, found out its limitations, its potential. We are located on Central Avenue between Southern and Broadway. It is actually an old Hohokam site, so I find it quite ironic that we are what was traditional agriculture 1,000 years ago, and during the settler period and during the 1800s and 1900s was exclusively agriculture, is now an official food desert. So we find it quite novel that we're coming in there and demonstrating. We have it's about 1.5 acre plot, demonstrating how to grow crops both in high-tech and low-tech and indigenous plant materials. But the most important part of this is the community involvement in the program. So
education shouldn't be just about what you learn in the classroom. It should be the teaching of the whole student. The idea of getting out of the classroom, getting their hands in the dirt, it isn't just what is taught in the classroom. In other words, how do you carry yourself during the day? How do you treat other people? And I think Aim Higher and Espiritu schools, they do an excellent job of doing that.
it kind of skipped a slide, so sorry for my pause. We're working with Espiritu schools and Aim Higher Academy, which is a junior high. We found out the best way to get the nutritional message across is, you know, we all talk about we need food into food deserts. We need fresh food available to these. Okay, what are we doing about it? So this program, and you can take the horse to the trough, he's not necessarily going to drink. So we've started, the way we're trying to implement this program is working with the kids. So the kids take the message home to the parents, and the parents will hopefully become interested in fresh food products. So I start the class, meet twice a week. First week I gave them all dates. 2 out of 40 kids enjoyed the dates. Next week they got radishes. I had a little bit higher percentage there. But I didn't take it for 1 week. All of a sudden the kids were saying, hey, where's our vegetable this week? Like it or not? So the idea that they're interested in, and they're going out into the field and they're working on it and understanding the processes, just like we were weighing things. What does tear mean? What does a chicken look like besides chicken McNuggets at McDonald's? And that you can get eggs out of the chicken, you don't necessarily need to process it. You can if you want to. So getting the buy-in to the kids and understanding the nutritional components of everything is the kind of a workable demonstrational model that we have. So we operate a food hub where we bring food in from farms across central Arizona and then distribute it out. We also offer those products at a farm stand. So the food hub is the idea that the location is the center of the hub, and that the product comes in there and then is disseminated into the community, both locally there and then out into the community as a whole. So it's a very applicable model that can be applied elsewhere. And greatly appreciate the City of Phoenix and what you all, there's the slide. So your help in getting this all done. So the top is the progression from the field that it's essentially cleaned up over time. We built a raised bed because we had slight arsenic problems, so we had to get up out of there. We've since found out about other biological ways to bioremediate it, called hyperaccumulators. And then the opening ceremony that was done with conjunction of the Ruiz family and Project America, Espiritu Schools. And then what we're doing as far as growing plant materials, harvesting out and getting people involved. So it's the main thing it's where the rubber is finally meeting the road, because we all talk about food deserts. We all talk about local food. We all talk about the nutritional value and the health outcomes that can come from eating the food. Well, this is trying to put it into place and to get the horse drinking the water, not just getting the trough in front of the horse.
Fabulous. Great. Thank you, Paris. So that's the conclusion of our presentation. Now our next steps will be to continue to advocate for additional food projects, and then also we have a focus this year to really work with health industry to see what kind of healthcare facilities we can bring on to these brownfield sites as well. Happy to take any questions.
Wonderful, thank you. Any questions? Great update, thank you so much. Made us all hungry for healthy foods as well. Really appreciate the update.
The kids are going to be operating the farm stand here probably in 2 or 3 weeks, so you can come on down we think on Thursday evenings.
It's on my way home, excellent.
So you're more than welcome.
Wonderful, thank you. And now our pension update.
Okay, good morning again, Chairwoman Gallego and subcommittee members. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss with you today the City of Phoenix Employees Retirement System, otherwise known as COPERS. You had expressed interest in a few things: the board makeup, investment philosophy, and also some actuarial information. So that's what we'll be discussing with you today. With me today is Scott Miller, the Retirement Program Administrator. We're very fortunate to have Scott on our team. He has 20 years experience in the retirement areas, and very fortunate to have him as part of our team. Also with us today is Laura Wyrick, and Laura is part of the board's investment company called Makita, and Denise Olson, our Chief Financial Officer. So Scott will lead the presentation today.
Thank you. Of course, if you have any questions as we're going along, please remind me to turn on my microphone. And then if you have any questions as we're going forward, please let me know. I'll be happy to help you with those questions. So first, let's talk a little bit about COPERS itself. COPERS was created by Chapter 24, Article 2 of the City Charter. back in 1953. So we've been around for quite some time. The board is also provided for by the city charter. Within section 4.1 of that Article 2 provides the responsibility and the authority of that board. As you can see, the authority and responsibility for the administration, management, and operation of the retirement plan and for construing and carrying into effect the provisions of this article are vested in the retirement board. So some quite broad authority for a retirement board, which is consistent with other retirement systems around the country. I've worked with between 35 and 40 other retirement boards, retirement systems around the country, and that's a very typical designation of trustee authority. This is a trust after all. The trustees themselves, there are 9 members of the COPERS board. 3 of those folks are elected city employees. The elections were just held in December. They were seated during the first meeting in January. The 3 city employees are Charlene Reynolds from Aviation. She is actually a holdover. She was on the board before, and so she was reelected to the board. She serves as the board's chair. Spencer Self with Neighborhood Services, who's in the audience today. He was a newly elected member, as was
Congratulations.
Mr. Jason Stokes with police, and you may know him with his work with Aspetia as well. So those are 3. Our 4th is a Phoenix citizen. So we have a citizen member that sits on the board, which is also fairly typical across the country. We have requirements for that Phoenix citizen, however. They have to be neither employed by the city nor receiving a benefit. So not an employee, not a retiree of the COPERS system, and who has at least 5 years experience in a private or public pension plan, which is quite a bit of experience. Right now the member is John Heblum, who's the AZ Federal Credit Union General Counsel and HR Director. We are very, very lucky to have him. His term unfortunately expired at the end of December, and we've been trying to find a replacement since then. We're having a lot of trouble finding someone with that type of experience with the 5 years in a private or public defined benefit plan. Mr. Heblum has graciously offered to stay on the board until we find that replacement. We're hoping to not find that replacement for another full term, but we'll see what we can do about that, because he is excellent. We also have a retired member. Susan Perkins, former Deputy Finance Officer, is retired, receiving a benefit from us. She is COPRA, the City Phoenix Retirees Association, comes together and decides who they would like to submit to the board. The board itself actually elects those 2 positions, the Phoenix citizen member and the retired member. We also have several ex officio board members. Ex officio, of course, being people who serve by virtue of their position within the city. One is the city manager or the city manager's designee, that is Ms. Toni Macaron. We also have the city treasurer, Kathleen Gitkin, who sits on the board, the city finance director, Denise Olson, sits on the board, and the city's, quote, urban manager or department head to be selected by the city manager. I don't know when Phoenix stopped having an urban manager, but it has been typically the HR director ever since that went away, and currently Lori Bays, our HR director, sits on the board as well. As I mentioned, COPERS is a trust, and so we have a trust fund. We have approximately $2.5 billion in that trust fund, give or take. It's been a little more give than take lately, but we are getting back some of the money we lost a couple weeks ago. This was, or the city charter requires the board to follow what's called the prudent investor rule. This was added in 2013 by the voters of the city. It was taken to the voters. Before that, the board had what's called typically a legal list for its investments. And so there was a list of investments in which it could invest. Everything else the board was prohibited in investing from. Well, that was a fairly limited list. It prevented the board from doing some defensive things that would have really helped it in the 07, 08, 09 market crash. And so now we have what's called the prudent investor rule, which is by far the norm throughout the country for retirement boards and other trustees for that matter. And that says the retirement board shall invest and manage trust assets as a prudent investor would. It provides some other things, other guidelines for the board as far as what a prudent investor would take into account while it was making those decisions. In addition to the prudent investor rule, the board also must follow the kind of standard responsibilities and duties of a trustee. That includes the duty of prudence and the duty of loyalty. The duty of prudence requires the board to get educated. It has to learn about what it's doing, If it can't become an expert in the field, it has a responsibility to hire experts in the field. It hires an actuary to help with its actuarial work, and it hires an investment consultant, actually 2 investment consultants to help with the investment of the fund. One of those is a real estate investment consultant called Alinium, who helps the board with its, of course, real estate investments. And the other is the Makita Investment Group. And Laura Wyrick with the Makita Investment Group is here to talk about our investment program.
Good morning. Good morning, Councilwoman Gallego and Councilwoman Gallego and members of the subcommittee. I wanted to provide you a little bit of background on my firm first, so that you know who we are and what we do for COPERS. Makita Investment Group has been in business for 40 years. I'm based in our San Diego office. We have 6 offices, 5 in the United States and 1 in London. We're an independently owned investment advisory firm, which means we don't manage any assets. We recommend investment managers, but we do not receive any fees from anyone that we recommend. And we think that really aligns the interests of our clients with us. And we have 143 employees. We advise 160 or so individual clients, most of whom are pension funds, but we also do advise some endowments, foundations, and other types of tax-exempt institutional investors. And we work with over 200 individual funds. I thought I'd also mention, which is somewhat unique in the financial services industry, we have a focus on diversity at our firm. 48% of our owners, including myself, are women or minorities, and 40% of our leadership team are also women or minorities. We think that the research coming out on increasing amount of research on diversity of thought leading to better organizational decision-making is positive for us and our clients as well. So you can see on the slide that's popping up that we've worked for about 2.5 years with COPERS, and we've led a variety of educational discussions on a variety of topics, specifically investments. As you know, it's a relatively complicated field for folks that don't have an investment background. We think it's really important we think an educated investor is a more prudent investor, and it's really important that board members understand the decisions that they're making fully. And then we also have advised on governance, things like best practices, coming up with a statement of investment beliefs in terms of, do we have a preference for index funds that are lower cost or more costly actively managed strategies? What's the best way to come up with a policy statement and things to include in that investment policy statement as well? And then we've talked quite a bit about asset allocation. We found in working with our clients, there's sort of a happy medium between you have certain boards that perhaps might make the asset allocation decision maybe too quickly without enough education. How much of the assets are invested in, say, U.S. equity relative to bonds has major influence on the returns of the fund, so you don't want to be too quick with that decision. Then we also, on the opposite side of the spectrum, work with some boards that maybe take a bit too long, to speak so much about the educational process and learning about it that there aren't decisions made that can then have a positive impact going forward. And we really found that the COPERS board fell, we think, in that happy medium. It was about a 6-month period between when we first introduced potential asset allocation options and started that education process on new asset classes that then they adopted and started moving towards a new asset allocation. You can see that asset allocation on the next slide, the mix of assets. The only free lunch in investing is diversification. You want asset classes that zig and zag in different manners. I'll point out here what the abbreviation TIPS means. That's Treasury Inflation Protected Securities. Those are government guaranteed bonds that have their interest payments indexed to inflation. I'll point out that every investment consulting firm like Makita puts together our expectations for various asset classes for expected return, volatility or risk, and standard deviation. We model about 60 individual asset classes and come up with our long-term 20-year expected return for the asset allocation mix. So the adopted asset allocation for COPERS, we estimate, has a long-term expected return of about 7.3%. with standard deviation of 12.1. That doesn't mean a whole lot when you're not looking at it relative to other potential asset allocations, but that is something that that COPERS put a lot of time into adopting. And I'll also mention, some of the changes with this asset allocation relative to past asset allocations. Hedge funds, for example, used to be a 15% weight in the prior asset allocation. Now it's 5%. One of the reasons for making that change was to save on investment management fees. Hedge funds are very expensive, and they invest in a lot of the asset classes like public equities and public fixed income that COPERS is able to access at a lower cost through things like index funds. In terms of implementation, once an asset allocation is adopted, then we go through each individual asset class and make sure that we think it's implemented in the correct way. Whenever there is a new asset class added, there's a competitive search process. So we bring into the board, as I mentioned, we don't have any relationships with investment management firms, so there's no incentive for us to recommend an expensive active manager over, say, a Vanguard index fund that any of us could access in a retirement plan. And the board considers various ways of implementing the different asset classes. Chairwoman, one of the things you had asked for us to take a look at was the PSPRS allocation relative to COPERS, and you can see that here. Makita Investment Group does not work with PSPRS, so we based this information on publicly available records. So some of the differences I just point out here, COPERS has a higher weight to emerging markets equity. We think that makes sense because, as you've probably heard a lot about, the developed world is really not growing at the same degree to which emerging markets are. Also, emerging markets equities looked relatively undervalued over the past several years relative to other, say, U.S. equities that have a very high price to earnings multiple right now in general. I'll mention that rate-sensitive assets, so more conservative fixed income, is an area where COPERS has a more than 4 times weight, the PSPRS allocation. And if you look down at the bottom, you can see there that PSPRS has a much higher weight to risk parity, global tactical asset allocation, and then a small allocation to cash. So, global tactical asset allocation are generally active managers that can use any of the other asset classes across the spectrum. So a board would sort of be putting their faith in active managers that they are going to allocate correctly rather than making that decision themselves. So that's just sort of, I think, when I look at these two allocations, maybe a philosophical difference that I see.
All right, now we'll move on to your mid-morning nap with the actuarial evaluation discussion. The city charter also requires actuarial evaluations to be performed every year. That is a best practice. It's required by the city charter. Actuarial assumptions are used in order to come up with those actuarial valuations. The actuarial assumptions themselves are created through actuarial experience studies, which are performed every 5 years. Again, that is also required by the charter and is also a best practice around the country. We last performed our experience study in 2015. We modified some of the mostly demographic assumptions at that point, and we did an update in 2017. The experience studies help analyze the plan's economic and demographic actual assumptions in comparison with general economic conditions and the plan's historical experience to come up with those economic and demographic assumptions that we use. The valuation mechanism itself actually, it comes up with the present value of the liabilities, and the way that it comes up with that is it takes all of those assumptions, so mortality assumptions, wage growth assumptions, longevity assumptions, when people are going to retire, inflation assumptions, and what it does is it actually projects a benefit stream for every member and every retiree. So the approximately 15,000 folks that we have as members and beneficiaries, our actuary creates a projected benefit stream for every one of those folks and then discounts that down to the present value using our assumed rate of return. We're actually required under the Governmental Accounting Standards Board and the Actuarial Standards of Practice to use our assumed rate of return to come up, to use as a discount rate to come up with the present value of those. When you get the present value of all of those together, that's what our actuarial liability is, and then we compare that to our assets to come up with whether we have we come up with our funded ratio. And of course, right now we're at about a 57% funded ratio, so we have 57% of the assets required to satisfy that liability right now. But remember, that liability is projected out over the next 50 years for some people. I mean, when we have a 20-year-old person that comes on staff, their mortality, their life expectancy is probably somewhere in the 80s, and so we're projecting that out over almost 60 years. The demographic assumptions relate to kind of the individual. One of the most marked of those assumptions is, of course, our mortality assumption, how long a person's going to live. How long is Scott Miller, age 50, projected to live? That tells the actuary, okay, how long do I need to project those benefit streams for? And so that mortality assumption has one of the biggest effects as far as a demographic assumption. Those tables were updated in 2015. Our actuary came in and said, you know, you don't really have the experience. You're not big enough. We only have 15,000 members and retirees. We lose about 150 retirees every year. That sounds like a lot, and certainly to the individual it is, but as a broad brush, it's not nearly large enough experience to come up with an accurate statistical evaluation of what the plan as a whole's mortality is going to look like. And so what they did was they compared our actual mortality with a variety of available mortality tables out there. There's the MP 2014, and as you can see, there's the CalPERS. CalPERS is the California Public Employee Retirement System, the largest retirement system in the country right now. Compared it to them, their healthy annuitant mortality table, and that actually fit us the best as far as our healthy annuitants. We think part of the reason that probably fit us best is because what are all the employees for CalPERS? They are all public employees. Public employees have been shown to live longer for possibly two reasons. They have access to a defined benefit plan, which ensures that they have adequate resources throughout their life, and they have access to more and better health insurance. And so public employees just naturally live longer. The teachers of the world actually live the longest. We don't have any teachers on our system, and so that's why we use the CalPERS rather than the CalSTRS mortality table. They have about 1.9 million members and beneficiaries, retirees, and so they have a much more robust experience with which to construct their mortality tables and can come up with a statistically accurate mortality table, and that's why we use them. For the first time in 2015, the board also adopted a mortality improvement assumption. Every 5 years when we would do these experience studies, we would have these huge upticks in mortality. American mortality is improving every day. People are living longer. And so every 5 years we would have this huge uptick and we'd have increased contributions. You can see what just moving in 2015 did to our liability. It increased at 7.7%. It increased the contribution by 5%. So that was a big change. Our actuary came in and said, you know, one way that you can mitigate that going forward is by adopting future mortality improvement assumptions. And what that does is it assumes that we're going to keep getting older, that our mortality is going to keep improving. And so in 5 years, or actually in 2020, in 2 more years when we do another experience study, we're hopeful that that mortality improvement assumption that we used will actually result in a 0% increase in the mortality cost for the system, because we've already assumed beforehand that improvement. We've already built it into the cost structure of the plan. Again, as you can see, just the mortality change increased our liability by 7.7%. That was a chunk. Here are a few other examples of demographic assumptions. Disability rates, termination rates, and retirement rates are some of the biggest. I mentioned we have economic assumptions and demographic assumptions. So the economic assumptions, the assumed rate of return is, of course, one of the largest that we use. That was updated in 2017. We looked at it and had our actuary look at it in 2015 as well, but held off on changing it until 2017 for a couple of reasons. The board had just changed the assumed rate of return in 2013 when it had when the prudent investor rule was added in, as I mentioned before, and the breadth of our investable universe expanded, and we were able to take advantage of some defensive mechanisms in order to protect ourselves from market downturns. We dramatically changed our asset allocation. That changed the expected rate of return, and that's why they changed the assumed rate of return down from 8% down to 7.5% in 2013. So we just recently done it, but then also, if you recall from Ms. Wyrick's presentation, that was also the beginning of our look into a new asset allocation. And so the board didn't want to re-examine and make a change 2 years after it made a previous one, and then 2 years from making another change. And so it held off until the board adopted the new asset allocation in early 2017. Then we called up our actuarial consultant and said, please take a look at our economic assumptions again. And they recommended that we move down to a 7.25% assumed rate of return. In order to come up with that number, what they did was they took Makita's what are called capital market assumptions, or their assumptions for what our asset classes are going to return over the next 20 years, used 9 other investment consultants' capital market assumptions, along with their own economic modeling and projections to come up with a reasonable range of assumed rates of return. 7.5 was within at least a reasonable range, but not a very probable range. The 7.25% was a much better fit for our asset allocation, and so the board moved that to 7.5% in about August or September of last year, and we used it for the first time in the June 30, 2017 actuarial evaluation. A couple other economic assumptions that we actually changed last year was our PEP assumption. The PEP is kind of akin to a COLA. It's a post-employment increase in retiree benefits. We had assumed an annual 1.5% increase. We've never been able to achieve that, unfortunately. Matter of fact, this year it's going to be a 0.34% increase. And so we moved that down to 1.25%. We also moved the wage increase assumption from 3.5 down to 3%. The wages aren't going up as quickly as had been projected 5 years ago. And because of those two changes, that actually only increased the contribution rate by about 0.22%. You would have expected a much larger contribution increase with a 1/4 point reduction in that assumed rate of return, because as your assumed rate of return goes down, you're discounting by a smaller percentage, and so your liability goes up. So you would have expected a much higher contribution increase, but it was only 0.22. The liability, or contribution increase, the liability increase was actually only 0.05%, so incremental change in that liability. And that's really what we have for you today. Of course, I would be more than happy to address any questions that you have. I hope you found this informative. We certainly enjoy it and appreciate your attention.
Wonderful, thank you. It is very important to our employees.
It is.
We have before us a citizens ballot initiative which would impact the COPER system. One of the things it would do is it would require a specific historical rate of return instead of an assumed rate of return. So you have 20 years of experience in this. Should we use the assumed rate of return?
Councilwoman Gallego, the short answer is no, for several reasons. First off, as I mentioned before, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, under which we have to account for things within the COPER system, and the Actuarial Standards of Practice, which govern the practice of our actuaries, require us to use our assumed rate of return as the discount rate. The initiative would require us, actually require the City Council to perform an analysis of the system using the average of the past 10 years. That number right now is about 4.4%. That's not what our assumed rate of return is. And so that would be contrary to GASB and to the Actuarial Standards of Practice. Aside from that, keep in mind, like I mentioned, in 2013, we were able to dramatically change our asset allocation. The investable universe for the COPERS board dramatically expanded. We got rid of that legal list and moved to the prudent investor standard. As a result, the 5 years before that, that would still be within this 10 years, those returns are not anywhere indicative of what we're going to be accomplishing in the next 10 years, in the next 20 years. We have a markedly different asset allocation, a much more robust attention to the risk profile of our different asset classes and how they interact, and the benefits of that diversity, the free lunch that we get, being able to diversify. And so it's a much different world right now than it was even 5 years ago for COPERS.
Is it fair to say that because of the changes, including to the prudent investor rule, just the changes we made at the ballot, that the historical 10-year investment term returns for this period would be an unusually poor predictor of rate of return because of, and I can happy to address it to Ms. Warwick if.
Councilwoman Gallego, if Laura has a response.
Yeah. I just add, any individual time period, you're going to have a lot of bias as to what the market environment was during that time. So the past 1 year return, at least through January, was 16%. Just because, you know, the return was exceptionally good for the past year doesn't mean that that's indicative of the future. So I would say I believe that, you know, the advisors and the actuaries' projections going forward are more predictable, more likely to come true given what's happening now than, you know, what happened during a very specific time period. If we look at the past 10 years, when we go out to the end of 2018, if things continue as they are now, the return is going to be much higher because the global financial crisis will have dropped off from that 10-year return. So you can pick any individual time period to look at. The reason that other tax-exempt institutional pension funds don't do that is because it is so dependent on a very specific market environment. You can pick any particular time period that's going to look, you know, wholesale different in terms of the return.
Do you advise any pensions that pick their rate of return using a citizen ballot initiative?
No.
Do they all use a modeled assumed rate of return?
They do, and you know, everyone uses a different actuary, a different investment advisor, but all of them are using the best available information from a group of advisors to set their expectations going forward.
And I guess you have worked with many pensions beyond our own. What do you think of letting the citizens pick our mortality rates or life expectancy at the ballot?
Well, the initiative requires us to use requires the City Council to use the mortality from the past 10 years. As I'd mentioned earlier, our actuary has stated we do not have the experience to be able to adequately predict what the future mortality is going to be. And aside from that, mortality improves nearly every year with the exception of the past 2 years, which for the first time it's come down a little bit, in part due because of the opioid crisis. But going forward, obviously, hopefully that gets resolved. Mortality continues to improve. It's hard to drive a car when you're looking in the rearview mirror.
Great, thank you. Any questions from my colleagues? Wonderful. Well, thank you. I think it's very important. This is one of our big financial drivers at the city, and it's important that the council check in, although we are not the decision makers on the investment. And it was nice to see how low our investment fees are likely to be compared to PSPRS. They might benefit from some of the wisdom of the COPERS board. Perhaps Spencer will be willing to consult for them. Wonderful. Thank you so much for the presentation. Thank you for coming in to join us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Madam Chair, his nap comment indicated he thought this would be boring, but I actually thought it was interesting. Maybe that says something about me, I don't know, but I thought you should know it wasn't nearly as boring as you suggested. So,
Thank you.
high praise indeed, I know.
And continuing our trend with it being Tony's Day at the subcommittee, we will have our final presentation today on our dental benefits.
Chairwoman Gallego and subcommittee members, we have a brief presentation today about dental benefits. You will recall that last month we were here presenting information on an RFP for medical benefits for employees. And today we are here to talk about dental benefits. HR Director Lori Bays is here, along with Deputy Director Leslie Dewar, and she is over our benefits area and our wellness area for the city.
Good morning. I'm here to talk about the dental coverage for employees and the RFP process that we anticipate beginning in March. So as you know, the city offers employee dental coverage to benefits eligible employees as part of the employee benefits program, and this helps us to attract and retain employee talent. Cigna Dental has been the selected vendor for the city for more than 15 years. The last dental RFP that was issued occurred in 2011, and that contract ends at the end of this calendar year, December 31, 2018. That is why issuing an RFP soon is important. We expect to do that in March and come back to the subcommittee and council in May 2018 with a recommendation. Currently, just to quickly give you a quick overview of the dental program for employees, there are two plans, a dental HMO, a dental PPO. The majority of employees are enrolled in the PPO, with 30% being in the HMO. And the majority of the 11,000 employees enrolled in the dental plan are in family coverage. The dental HMO is a fully insured plan. However, the dental PPO is a self-funded plan similar to our medical plan. That means the city does establish those premiums each year. And as I said in the earlier slide, the dental PPO is where 70% of our enrollment lies. The city contributes 100% of single premium and 75% of the family premium, and this is established through MOU and MOA agreements at the bargaining table, and has been in place for at least 4 to 5 negotiation cycles. This adds up for those 10,000, almost 11,000 employees and their dependents to $9.5 million annually before the loss ratio impact is taken into account.
Your question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So about that, no, that's all right. So I think the premiums have been the same for a number of years, and they're actually lower than they were 5 or 6 years ago. Isn't that correct?
That is correct, Councilman Waring.
So I mean, that's certainly a good thing for the employees. I mean,
It
that's,
is a
you know,
good
in
thing.
this healthcare environment, this is healthcare after all. And really,
Correct.
anybody who, maybe I just know a lot of dentists, I don't know, but I sort of look at this, you know, oral care
It's
really
important.
affects your overall health.
It
It's
does.
a big deal. So, and neglected by, you know, during the downturn, that was one of the things people cut.
That is
Kind of
exactly
shockingly,
right.
but if you know a plan, so I do appreciate that it's been static for the employees and even down slightly from where it was it 5 or 6 years?
That is
when I looked
correct.
at it, yeah.
That's an excellent observation. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that it is a self-funded plan and that loss ratio is evaluated by our actuaries every year. And that means that when we have a utilization rate that falls below 100%, which we have had for many years, to your point, the city then recoups some of that premium savings. And in 2017, that was an amount of $1.5 million. So that is how and why those rates stay very flat or even, as you pointed out, drop slightly from time to time.
And could you talk about my excellent observation again? No, I'm just kidding. Nobody ever says that, so it's very nice that you did. I appreciate you lying to me like that. That
You're
was very
welcome.
nice, or overestimating anyway. Thank you.
So the surplus is retained in the healthcare trust fund where the medical expenses are paid. And the loss ratio has fallen consistently between 80 and 90% for that PPO plan for many years, which is a good sign. So our plan is to issue that RFP in early March. We will be evaluating it on the basis of vendor qualifications, method of approach, and price, of course. And then, as I said earlier, that recommendation will come to this subcommittee and the city council in May. And we will hopefully have a new dental contract to begin on January 1, 2019.
Wonderful. Any more excellent questions?
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
All right. Any questions? No. Wonderful. Thank you for that
Thank you
update.
very much.
Any council member requests for future agenda items?
When we do our homeless update, will that also include Phoenix Cares?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Oh, it is? I missed that. Thank you.
All right. With that, we are adjourned.